Hey guys, welcome back. In this section, we're going to be talking about the if statement, the if, else if, and else. At the end of this section, we will have a challenge. So let's get started. So up to right now, our programs have been linear, meaning there's not code that it doesn't get executed inside the main program, right? So everything we write inside the main is going to get executed pretty much. And that's going to change with the if statement. So the if statement basically specifies a block that will be executed if a condition is met. And what do I mean by this? So the syntax is just the word if, and then we're going to open parentheses, and inside of here we're going to have some conditions. And conditions, just like we learned in last section on operators, right? So let's say if 4 is greater than 2, we're going to execute this block. And a block is just something inside this curly braces. So if this is true, whatever is inside here, so if condition is true, this block will get executed. Let's write something in here. So let's do console write line. Say yes, 4 is greater than 2. And let's run this. Okay, taking a second to load up. And there you go. Yes, 4 is greater than 2. Okay, cool. So this means that if we write something out here, let's say we do console.write line, hello there, and let's say here, bye. This will get executed. Then this is going to evaluate this condition, 4 is greater than 2. If this is true, it's going to execute everything inside this block. If this is not true, then it's going to skip this whole thing. It's going to skip this block and go over here. So if I run this, we're going to see hello there. We're going to see yes, 4 is greater than 2, and then bye. Let's now make this condition false so that you guys can see that this will not get executed. So instead of greater than, let's say equals. And remember, double equals is to compare things. So if 4 equals 2, then execute this thing. So let's run this. And as you can see, it only prints hello there and it prints bye. It never executes this code because this condition is false. All right, so now instead of doing it like this, instead of doing it this hard-coded values, let's prompt the user to enter a number. All right, so we're going to do a double number equals console dot read line. If you guys remember, we have to parse this in order to compare numbers. So let's do convert that to double. And let's compare number greater than 0. So let's say we want to ask the user enter a number, and then if the number is greater than 0, we're going to say yes, or we'll say the number, and we'll specify the number that the user used. Number is greater than 0. All right, let's run this. So I'll enter 1. The number 1 is greater than 0. Nice. So it printed this because I enter 1 and 1 is greater than 0. Now let's enter 0. then nothing gets printed because 0 is not greater than 0. So it's false, so it never executes this. Okay, how about if we want to say, you know what? If the number is greater than 0, say something. If it's not greater than 0, then print something else. Print the number is less than 0 or something like that. So in that case, we're going to use the else. And the else goes along with an if statement always. Like you can use an if statement by itself, but you cannot use an else by itself because it doesn't really make sense. And the else doesn't have a condition. So the else is if this is an evaluate to true, then you're gonna go inside the else. Let me show you an example. So I'll say in this case a number so okay, so if I enter a number now, and let's pick a number greater than 0. Let's say we pick 5. So if we pick 5, it's going to print, so it's going to print this first, enter a number, then we're going to enter the number, and then it's going to check this. So it's going to say I enter 5. So is 5 greater than 0? If this is true, so since this is true, it's going to execute this block, and it's going to print the number is greater than 0. The number 5 is greater than 0. And then it's just going to skip all of this stuff because this itself is a block, and it's only going to execute one of these. So either it executes this one, or in this case this is an else. So if this doesn't get executed, this one will, because this one doesn't have a condition, right? So only this one got executed because this one was true. Now let's enter a number that is less than 0. Let's enter -5. So in this case, we're saying the number -5 is less than 0, right? So let's see what's happening here. So we enter a number, and then it goes to this condition. It says is -5 greater than 0? This is false, and since this is false, this block won't get executed, and it reaches the end right here, and then it says, well, else just do this, and then this got executed and it finished. So if we want to have more than one condition, we can do that too in the same block, and this would be the else if condition. Say we want to check whether a number, so we're saying the number is greater than 0 or the number is less than 0. How about if we want to say the number is equals to 0? So we can do double equals and say console.writeLine number equals 0. So let's try this, but before I run it, so it's going to check this condition first. If the number is greater than 0, it's going to write this thing. Then it's going to check this one. If the number is equals to 0, it's going to write this to the console. Else, it's just going to write this. All right, let's run it. Let's check it out. So let's say I put 5 again and hit enter. As we expect, 5 is greater than 0, so it just executes this line, and then it skips all this stuff because all of this is treated as one block, and then it says bye. Now let's do the 0. So if I enter 0, it's saying the number 0 equals 0. So if statements would be, is 0 greater than 0? This is false. So it jumps this block and goes to the else if and checks. Is 0 equals to 0? This is true. So it executes this line and then it finishes. It skips this thing and goes to buy. And last but not least, let's do a negative number. Let's negative 9. In this case, it says the number negative 9 is less than 0. So negative 9 greater than 0, this is false, so it doesn't execute this. Negative 9 equals 0, false, it doesn't execute this. So we have an else which we just execute this. So we can have multiple else if, but we can only have one if statement, and we can only have one else. We always start with the if, not with an else if or an else. An else cannot go by itself. So we always start with an if, then we put as many else ifs as we want, and then optionally you can have an else. You don't have to have it if you don't want. So I'll add another else if, and I'll say if number equals to 5. 5 is my favorite number. So if we run this now and we put 5, it would say the number 5 is greater than 0. Okay, so this is where the order matters, because so I put 5, right? So 5 is my favorite number. Why is it not printing this? Why is it printing this thing? So let's go over this. So I put 5, but the first thing it checks is this condition, and it says is number greater than 0, right? And then since it is, it just prints this thing, skips all this stuff, right? And then just prints by. So what we got to do is we have to move this around a bit. So in this case, we first need to start checking if the number equals to 5, print that there. And lastly, we can do is number greater than 0. Okay, let's run this again. So if the number is 5, we'll say this is my favorite number. Okay. If we do a 0, the number 0 equals to 0, which is this option. Cool. Lastly, if we do, let's say 6, it will print the number 6 is greater than 0. And then the else will work as it is. Now, if we take out the else, it will be the same as the beginning. So you can have if, else if, and not an else. Meaning if I run this and I put a number -9, it just says buy, because -9 doesn't meet any of these conditions pretty much. It's time for a challenge. So let's pretend we are an online liquor store, and we're going to be asking the user to please enter their age, and if they are 21 or older, we will allow them to enter the bar, like the online bar or store. If not, we will say come back when you're 21. And feel free to pause the video and take the challenge, and I'm gonna start working on it right now. So first thing I'm gonna do is write console, and I'll say like welcome to our online store bar or something. And then I'll say please enter your age. So I'll do age equals, and I know how to convert this to integer, so I'll do that, and I'll do console that read line. And then this is where the if statement comes in handy. If age is greater than or equals to 21, we'll say come in and enjoy some drinks. Or not enjoy, but order. Or some drinks. Okay. Else, we'll say come back when you are 21. And then we can be even fancy, say how many years until they're 21. There are, and we'll say h, or 21 minus h years left. And then instead of there, I'll say you have okay. So let's do parentheses here. And let's run this. So enter your age. Let's say we do 21. Come in and order some drinks. Cool. Let's do 58. Nice. How about if we do 17? Okay. You have 4 years left. Sweet. So with this, we have reached the end of this section. I encourage you to do a lot more practice problems and do something that involves the else if, something that involves the else. Try doing, like, I can give you some examples. Like, for example, ask the user to enter the grade on the class, on some class they got or something in some exam, and then whether it is between 90 and 100, you will say you got an A, and if it's between like 80 and 89, then you will say it's a B. If it's a 70 to 79, you will say it's a C, so on and so forth. So that's an example you can do. You can also do ask the user for a number, and you will tell them whether it is a even or odd, or if it's 0. That's a good one. And to know if the number is even or odd, you can use the modulus. I talked about it earlier in previous sections, so check that out. And yeah, just keep practicing, and you will get good at it. You will do very good. You just got to do is practice and keep learning. Like always, if you have any other questions or if you need help with anything, leave it in the comments. In the next section, we're going to go over the switch. That'll be interesting. I'll catch you guys in the next one.